Welcome to the Leadmore podcast, a show where we sit down with leaders of the past and the present to help inspire and create more leaders for the future. And we just did that today with Sioux Falls Mayor Paul TenHaken. In this episode, we sat down and talked about his origin of leadership story and how he went from a CEO of his own company to deciding to move on from that opportunity and run for mayor of Sioux Falls. How did he know it was the right time, and how does he go through that transition? We also talked about the difficulties of being a politician and what happens behind the scene and whether he's actually made for that. We explored what 2020 looks like in a leadership role, dealing with a global pandemic, racial justice movement, and all these other things. It's been such a crazy year. You're going to love his vulnerability. He shared some great stories, and I think you're going to learn a lot from Mayor Paul TenHaken. So let's take a listen. I'm here with Mayor Paul TenHaken. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. 2020, just a normal year for you, right?
It's just, the usual, pandemics and violence and, social unrest. It's just, another walk in the park in the mayor's office.
How often do people tell you hey, you're in politics now. You got a few extra gray hairs maybe.
Oh, what I was looking at our family photo. We just got a new family photo. And the previous one we had was 2 years earlier. And you can see it, man. I mean, I've aged, and I'm not too proud to say I can see it. I mean, I got more wrinkles, got more gray. I just look more tired, and it's kind of a bummer to have to admit that, but it really does kind of age you. The job.
Well, your schedule. I mean, we talk about. I think I can't imagine what your day looks like. Every minute's got to be scheduled in full.
Well, pre-COVID, we would get probably 30, 35 requests a week of stuff to be at. And you spend a lot of time saying no to that. What's kind of been nice in this COVID world is a lot of events, sadly are canceled. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to go speak at stuff. I'm not expected to be at stuff. So I have had more family time because I'm home in the evenings more with my family. So that's been good. But now things seem to be turning again. I mean, the schedule's heating up. I just mentioned we got a ribbon cutting, an in-person ribbon cutting today. So some of those sorts of things are starting to ramp back up.
We'll get to some of all that stuff, 2020 and COVID and being a mayor. But I want to start a little bit with your origin story. You grew up in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And you went to school in Northwest Iowa. When did you come to Sioux Falls? What brought you here?
Moved to Sioux Falls in 2000. I chased a girl here, and we got married. And she finished school at Dordt College in Sioux Center, where I went. And then we moved here in 2000. So we were just married. We moved here. And so, it'd be 20 years. It was 20 years this summer that I've lived here in Sioux Falls.
Great. And you started in marketing, graphic design?
I worked in marketing and graphics roles. I went to college from 96 to 2000, and that was the era of just .com boom, pets.com and groceries.com and all these IPOs. And so I went to college wanting to be a web designer.
Yeah.
And learned on a program called Adobe Page Mail, and it was this real antiquated web design software. So started doing graphics and web design stuff right out of the gate, and soon realized I don't like sitting behind a computer all day and just looking at a screen. I need to be around people. So took some electives at USF, University of Sioux Falls, got an MBA through a working MBA program there, and then moved more into marketing roles till 2007, 2008, when I started a company called ClickCrane here in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get at the heart of there is, did you think as a 21-year-old you would be an entrepreneur someday, or how did that spark?
Never, man. I saw when I was younger just the headaches of entrepreneurship, like dealing with taxes and payroll and staffing and buildings and just all the headache.
Was it in your family, or were you exposed to it? Or
no?
Oh, okay.
So entrepreneurship was just never on my radar. Never wanted to do it. And really, one of the impetuses behind starting my own company is I got approached by some people who encouraged me to do it, and I had some partners early on in my business that I ultimately bought out, but. They said, "Hey, this leap will be easier because we'll be walking alongside you. We've started companies. We know how to deal with all the payroll tax, all that stuff." And so I think what scares most entrepreneurs from taking a leap of entrepreneurship is a couple things, but the biggest one being, where am I going to get clients to make this business sustainable? So you see a lot of people that just moonlight for forever, because that's a scary leap, going from moonlighting to full time. And So with these partners I had, they said, listen, we got clients, we got the work. And so that's a huge relief when you know you're going to have a built-in kind of business referral stream.
Yeah, especially in that services game, right? Where it's not always recurring, and sometimes you build that website and ship it off and got to get the next one. But you started at a great time, right? I mean, you started 2008, right?
Yeah.
I came back to South Dakota in 2009. We were down the hall at 8th and Railroad from each other. And you just had a couple guys at that time, and then, 30 employees?
Yeah, we grew. So I stuck with that company till 2017. At the end of 2017, I exited that. And when I did, we had 35 employees at that time. And it was a crazy 10-year ride, man. I absolutely loved it. Probably one of the best times of my professional career was running that company, and had a good life in that, income was good. My schedule was such that, I could be gone for a few days and no one would miss me. The company could kind of run itself, and was just really in a good spot, but started to become a little restless with that and complacent. And, for me, my faith is very strong to me, and started to ask myself, why am I here on this earth? What's my legacy? What am I doing here? And is it to just make money and build websites and build this, 35, 40, 50 person company? There's got to be something more, because that existence started to feel a little bit hollow to me. And so I would say probably, like I said, it was 10 years with the company, but probably year 7 or 8, started to get a real restlessness and a realization that I think my time here is probably going to need to come to an end soon.
Interesting.
And it's a weird feeling, because I think a lot of people would say, well, why wouldn't you just keep riding this way if it's, it's going well? But I don't know. I get a little bit of ADD in those instances, and just felt it was time to move on.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit more if you're willing, because I think ambitious leaders do have goals that they set. You're a type of person to me that's like, I'm going to do this. I think I remember having coffee. This is around about your 40th birthday that you made that leap. I don't know if it was a midlife crisis or, but
partially.
that feeling restlessness. I mean, this is sometimes viewed as a negative term, which it shouldn't be, but a really great lifestyle business, right? Yeah. You could do the family and do your athletic pursuits and run a great business. But was it conversations? Was it just, in your quiet moments of prayer, or like, where did you get this idea that maybe a leadership role in politics?
Well, I always looked at ClickRain as kind of those 35 employees were my family, probably a lot like you look at your team, and you have been entrusted those people to watch over them, to care for them, to make sure they have a good income and a good job, but also a good life outside of work. And we spend so much of our time at work that it's our responsibility as an employer to, invest in those people. And I had done that. And I said, okay, I think my work is kind of done here.
Sure.
What else? What other hills do I have left to climb here?
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it, but also just work for us as entrepreneurs or as leaders. Your work can become an idol really quickly, where you get to be solely identified by the title on your business card in your company. And I was ClickRain Paul, and that was my whole identity. And I'm much more than that. And so for me, I felt, all right, I need to redefine myself, because I'm a dad and a husband and a lot of other things. And I spend a lot of time, as morbid as this may sound, just thinking about my death and how I want to be remembered.
Legacy.
And how I want to be eulogized. And at that time, I'm like, man, if I die, people are going to come, and John Mayer's going to come to my visitations and say, Paul ran a really good business, man. He was a good business guy. And that just felt very hollow to me to be remembered in that way. So I'm like, well, how else can I make deeper impact in this world, in this brief time I have on this earth? And sign after sign just kept leading me towards running for this office. Not necessarily being the mayor, but running for this office.
Yeah.
Because, I honestly thought, okay, when I got in, I maybe have a chance to win, but I probably won't.
Yeah.
There's other good candidates, and that's okay. I'm going to run with integrity and do this. But thinking, if it doesn't work out, that ship has sailed, and I'm going to redefine my next chapter. And here we are, 2.5 years later.
Well, and that's one thing I admire about you is you were all in on that, right? I know that, maybe behind the scenes details, but you had sold your position in the company. If you lost the race, there was no going back. You had made that commitment both to yourself and the team.
Well, I was, as I said, it became clear it was just time for me to move on. I think some founders and companies overstay their welcome too,
Mm.
where it's like I felt I was the right guy to take this thing from A to B, but we needed someone else to take it from B to C. And the phrase I sometimes use is, it's better to be gone, not forgotten, instead of forgotten and not gone.
Yeah.
And so I think it was time for me to move
That's good.
on, and it was time to pass the baton to some other great leaders we had in the company. Said, okay, it's your responsibility now to shepherd this thing forward. We've built a good thing. I've done all I can here, and I want you to grow it. And you see that with some. I'll pick on Facebook. I'll pick on Mark Zuckerberg, for instance. That guy. I think it's probably time for him to step aside. He obviously took it from A to B. He took it from A to R. It's time to pass it to someone else.
It's a different era.
And so I think that's an important self-awareness aspect that business owners have to have, is to realize when is the right time for me to step aside and send the elevator down to the next team.
Yeah, I like that line. So if a leader's listening to this and they might be feeling that kind of inkling in their gut, how did you sort of gut check that? Was it conversations with friends and mentors, or that was a big decision. There was no going back. So how did you know, or did you just say, I'm committed?
Well, I'm a worst case scenario guy. I always play out worst case scenarios, and like, what's the worst case scenario if I leave this business? So I leave it and I lose the mayor's race, and I lose terribly, and I embarrass myself in the process, and I have to go, maybe get a job at a plant somewhere, or I have to go be a marketing specialist for some organization. It's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Deal with that.
Cool.
And so I think, to me, it's very hard to find a scenario that's unrecoverable from. And that's why I'm I have a high risk tolerance.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable taking risks. And I think, I needed to in order to jump in this office. I think each day in this office as mayor, you have to have a high risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And that's not to say you're gambling with, the taxpayers' money and you're doing things that are going to put the city in peril. But every day you're faced with literally hundreds of decisions, and you have to be able to just make them quickly and go quickly. And if you are risk averse and you have to think and weigh and ponder every decision 50 ways, you will just be handicapped.
Yeah. I appreciate your vulnerability on that. And so I'm going to ask you, because I feel like this is maybe a shift in year 2 of your mayorship from year 1. I'm a people pleaser, and I want like everyone to be my friend, right? I feel like my friendships go probably wider than deep. But how do you adjust to that role where just immediately when you walk in a room, some people aren't going to like you?
Yeah.
Right? That's politics. You're a mayor. I felt like maybe that was a harder thing at first when you first took the job.
Yeah, I think, deep down, every human wants to be loved. I mean, that's just an innate part of how God made us. We want to be loved, and we want to be liked and appreciated. And in politics, especially in 2020, if you want to be liked, you need to go sell ice cream, because this is not a job where people are going to like you.
Yeah.
And I've gotten really comfortable with that. Probably too comfortable at some points, where we are living in a time right now, John, where this country is just angry. There's so much anger. And a lot of that anger is directed towards elected officials, because we are seen as the people driving, for instance, right now, COVID response.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't create COVID. We didn't bring COVID. We are doing the absolute best we can right now in this issue with something that I never in a million years would have ever thought this would be something we'd be working on. And any decision you make, it
expires in like 2 days.
It's terrible. And there's so many differing opinions that people are angry no matter what. And COVID aside, they're angry at masks, they're angry at police, they're angry at Black Lives Matter, they're angry at our presidential choices. They're angry that my kids can't be in school, that my kid has to wear a mask. You're taking my liberties. I mean, there's just anger about everything.
Yep.
So I've realized that anger, that oftentimes it's directed towards me, it's really not I'm not the source of their anger. They're angry that their kid can't be at school.
Mm-hmm.
They're angry that they aren't getting the support from their employer that they think they should be getting. There's a lot of things driving that anger, but I just become the kind of the brunt, getting the brunt of that. And that's okay, because that's what you sign up for in this role.
Yep.
It's when you lose the empathy that's a problem. So when people are angry at you and you show that you can't relate or understand to the source of thing, that's where people start to get really upset. That's where I, in some ways, see a lack of that with some politicians, maybe even on the federal level, where they don't show the level of empathy that I think people want to see right now, that they can relate to what Joe Citizen is going through at this time.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. We'll come back to some of that, but I want to talk about, I think you were seen as actually both of our final two choices in the election, a breath of fresh air for Sioux Falls and for the city. And I look at, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, the way I run our company here and we do it at Lemonly. You approached the mayor office with some very intentional things right away, like some of that prep work, things like the One Sioux Falls sort of mantra, the core values that you wanted to instill, adding new jobs like the director of technology and innovation. So talk through some of that planning when you run with a plan and a platform, but then once you win, now what?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you run for office, you maybe think you know what changes need to happen, and then you get behind the curtain and you see, and that can totally shift.
Sure.
But one thing I knew was going to have to happen was going to be an intentional focus on the culture within the city of Sioux Falls. And I know you're a huge culture guy, as am I, because what we're seeing with all the gray wave, as they call it, or all the boomers that are retiring, is a huge exodus in leadership, in thousands of years. For me, thousands of years of experience are walking out the door in the next 4 years. I got 25% of my workforce in the city is retiring in the next 4 to 5 years, or retirement eligible, most of which take retirement.
450 or how many?
That'll be about 300 people and thousands of years of experience, and a lot of law enforcement officers, firefighters. So I knew I was facing that when I came in. And how am I going to recruit people to want to come work for the city when I'm competing with Lemonly and Sanford Health and Raven Industries and Mid-Continent, and now in this remote culture, I'm competing with everybody.
Yeah.
Why would you want to come work in city government, man? So I had to create a culture, and we're trying to build a culture that makes us a great employer to work for. And it's whether it's a focus on innovation or investing in employee engagement tools to make sure our people are engaged at work, changing some of our benefits, as simple as moving to casual dress, which is rare for a government entity, but people wear jeans, things like that. The culture really needed to shift and has shifted. And then I think we are becoming a more competitive employer in terms of not only our comp, but a place where people say, hey, that's a fun place to work. And not only that, the mission of working for government, it's really exciting because when you see change happening and you are part of that, it's one of the most rewarding things that you can experience.
I think you made a comment at some point about, there's probably eventually a ceiling, or you weren't going to be able to scale ClickRain to the amount of impact that you can have here in the city where you have over 1,500 employees. Talk about that, because I think that inspires you too, as you can really make change.
It does. And I have a lot of my directors and leadership team who get really frustrated with this COVID world we're living in right now. And I have to remind them, I say, there are books and aisles of books at Barnes & Noble or online about leadership and leading through. We are like, you're living through this. This is like your Super Bowl on how to lead through one of the most difficult times in the history of our country and lead a team. What an opportunity you've been given.
Or right in history.
It's fun. You got to look at it, because if you say, this sucks and what a grind this is right now, if that mentality seeps into your head, you're going to lose. You're going to lose the battle. But if you wake up each day saying, man, I got another amazing chance to lead these 1,300 employees through the hardest time they're ever going to probably face in their career.
Yep.
What a great opportunity. And that's an opportunity that you don't have in a smaller company or private, at ClickRain, it would have been smaller, a little bit different challenge. This is a huge challenge because not only the employees, but you got 190,000 residents that are also looking to you to say, hey, what are you doing to lead us through this time in our city, this very tense time? And some may say, I wouldn't want this job for all the tea in China. And I say, bring it on, and let's see how I can do my best to try and unify the city through this. And you mentioned One Sioux Falls. That was a big part of this. Is a city, the more unified a city is going into something like this, the more resilient we are. Yeah. So we're more neighbor loving. I mean, people want to help their neighbors. It's just the culture of Sioux Falls. And I think I've never seen in my 20 years, the culture of our city so tight as it is right now. Some may say some cities are divided more. I think Sioux Falls is tighter than we have been historically.
So that turned out to be really important. Some of that work from year one, you maybe used it faster than you thought you would.
I didn't know when we'd need to dip into that bank, but I'm like, if we can unify the city and have the city work better with the county, the school board work better with the T's, the Harrisburgs, like we're one kind of unit that are trying to make this region better. That messaging, and it's really just messaging and marketing saying, hey, rising tide lifts all boats type thing. We saw it after our tornadoes, how our community united around that we had, and we've seen it now with the pandemic. So this is a real special community. I mean, it's easy for me to say that, but it really is.
That's cool. So a lot of that uniting, messaging, cheerleading does actually sound very similar to being a CEO of a company. On the flip side, what has surprised you the most of being mayor of Sioux Falls?
A few things have surprised me. One, and these are just very, candid things. I have to sign so many freaking documents, John. It's incredible. I mean, every time I return to my office, there's a new stack of papers I got to sign. I'm signing off of stuff.
Are you reading them all?
Of course not. I mean, like, you can't.
Yeah,
you
someone
can't
just
read them
tells
all.
you this is this. You sign it.
You start to know what the forms are, and you see who's signed ahead of you. And it's like, all right, this guy vetted through finance, legal. And that's when you talk about delegation and trusting your team. It's like, I got a good team around me. So their eyes have been on it. Not to say I'm just blindly signing anything that's put in front of me, but you sign a lot of documents. You also have an incredibly difficult schedule and calendar, because back to your point about people wanting to like you, I'm probably the most accessible mayor in the history of the city. People tweet at me, they send me DMs, they hit me up on LinkedIn. Hey, can I grab coffee? I just had coffee with a young chiropractor this morning who just wanted to talk about leadership and learning. I made time for that. And so I'm such a yes guy with
and investing
you probably enjoy
in people. That type of stuff.
I do. I love it.
It's tough to prioritize.
I do. I wish I could just do that stuff all day, because it really fills my cup. So I have to do those once in a while with people. But I have to say no to a lot because the schedule's super intense.
That makes sense. Those are some of the surprises that you've had. How have you maybe grown the most? I know you're a person who sets goals. You compete in triathlons and races. So you're a person, you always want to grow. How have you grown as a leader?
Well, a few things. I've really learned a lot about myself the last 2 years. One is I have learned more than ever before the importance of hiring well and delegating and turning people loose. Because when you have a $600 million budget and the size of the city now that we're growing into, you have to trust the people that are working for you to be making the right decisions. And 80% of how you would have done it is good enough. And if you try and micromanage in this job, you're gonna lose your mind. So I think I've gotten better at delegating and hiring people and choosing the right people. But I've also gotten extremely thick skin. We talked about that early, where that's a good quality to have. It's when that skin gets so thick that your empathy is gone. That's where it gets to be difficult. And
how do you keep that in touch to make sure you still have that? I suppose you have friends, family.
It's by having those, like we talked about, I have those coffees, those one-on-one. I have the first Friday of every month, I have mayoral open office hours. Anybody in the city can sign up for a 20-minute slot with me. And I get some interesting conversations, man. Some of the people that come in there. And it's a way for me to keep in touch with like the boots on the ground people of this community. Because I find myself, going to a lot of boardrooms and chamber meetings and, executive meetings. And there's times when I need to hear from the guy who's got some drug problems in his neighborhood and what he's seeing and hearing. And so when I can hear directly from them, in fact, after this podcast is recorded and before my next meeting, I'm going to drive past what I think is a drug house. And a guy wrote me about this morning. I just want to see it firsthand, what he's experiencing. I'm going to go knock on his door, see if he's home. I want to talk to him. So I try to do some of that stuff to make sure I'm staying connected with the people that I'm serving. And then the third thing, and a phrase I have to remind my team a lot is just don't swing at pitches in the dirt, because there's a lot of those thrown at you. And, in baseball world, you're never going to get a good hit when you swing at a pitch in the dirt. And it's the same in life. There's a lot of people who want to throw pitches in the dirt and you just lay off them. Those are balls, man.
Yeah.
And so that's been good advice for me and something I try and heed every day.
And so that's good, because that sounds kind of like politics a little bit. And you did say off air, like, you've learned that I'm not a politician.
Yeah.
How do you separate those things? Because in theory, a mayor is a nonpartisan position, but in our world today, it becomes very political.
Right. It was a huge compliment the other day. I had a guy, pretty well-known guy in this community, come up to me and he's like, I don't even know. He said, are you a Republican or a Democrat? He said, and I'm like, well, that's probably one of the best compliments I could get because I'm a mayor, and some mayoral offices in larger cities become very partisan. And here, there's no Republican or Democrat way to fill potholes or, clean your wastewater or anything like
Sure.
that. It's just the work that has to be done. But I'm not a politician, man. I enjoy leading people. I enjoy building teams. I enjoy setting goals and getting things done. But when it comes to like the gamesmanship of politics,
Hmm.
I'm not very good at that.
Interesting.
And I don't enjoy
Did you think
it.
you wanted to, or did the role teach you that you didn't like it? Or
I think everybody thinks it'd be easy to do to be a politician,
yeah,
right? And just you got to kiss some babies and you smell. There's so much stuff behind the scenes that okay, if I do this, I'm going to give you a real example. Ballot boxes. So we have in our city right now, our county auditor wants to place ballot boxes in our libraries, which for absentee ballots sounds like a good
makes
idea.
sense to me. Yeah,
I never saw a plan, was never shared with me. It just kind of came out that we wanted to do this. And in this environment, when the postal service is getting attacked and all these other things, I need to know if we're going to put ballot boxes on city property, how are they secured? Are they monitored? Are they staffed? I mean, I need to know the integrity of those
yep,
because that's a political landmine,
sure,
absentee ballots right
sure,
now. And so I knew by standing up and saying, we're not going to do that right now because I don't even know the plan or anything. I got totally roasted and skewered by I'm trying to suppress voter turnout, and it's a Trumpian strategy trying to make
yeah,
it harder for
yeah,
people to vote. And I knew that was going to happen when I did, but it's the right thing because I need to know that there's integrity in that process before I roll it out to the. So politically, the right thing to do would have been, yeah, let's do this
yep.
because no one would probably have objected. But again, not being a politician, I'm like, it maybe is politically the right thing, but the proper thing and the safe and secure thing is to let's get a plan together first. And maybe we pilot this at like 1 or 2 locations this cycle
Sure.
and then roll it out later.
So what would you say to people who then maybe interpret that as like, well, Pierre is calling his office or DC is calling his office? Like there's those are strings that are being pulled.
I know and that's unfortunate that people would think that. I mean, I don't take direction from the feds or the state on anything we do. I take it from the citizens who reach out to me,
Yep.
from our city council. And so the hard part, John, is that as a Republican, people know I'm a Republican, you get painted with a really broad brush.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, of course you want to dismantle the postal service. Of course you want to build a border wall. Of course you want to do all these things. You're a Republican. And it's like, well, it's just like saying if you've met one baseball player, you've met them all. Well, there's a lot of different types of baseball players.
Sure.
There's a lot of different types of police officers. A cop is not a cop is not a cop.
Yeah. Yeah.
A Republican is not a Republican. There's very different views
That
and
empathy you talked
perspectives.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's important, I think, for me to always let people know that my people that I take my cues from are the 190,000 people of the city, what I think is best for them.
Yeah.
They may not always think that, but they have to know that my interests are very pure and that I want to leave this city better than I found it when I, first sat in the chair.
Yeah, that's good. And so how do you, like in an issue with COVID this spring, how do you separate those things? Because a lot of people did have opinions. A lot of people did have agendas. And, you're trying to do what's best for the 190,000. Someone else is trying to do what's best for the state.
Yeah.
How do you separate those things?
Well, back to the empathy discussion, you have to say, hey, I hear you. I agree with you in theory, but here's why that won't work. Here's why your agenda in wanting to do this won't work right now. You make some great points. It has merit, but just I need you to trust your elected leadership right now that this is the route we're headed.
Sure.
But your opinion matters. I want you to keep it coming because I'm relying on it. When you frame it up to someone that way, instead of just saying, no, can't do it.
Yeah,
That's a dumb idea because that will never work. Well, that just digs people in further. So political discourse and having like discourse where you can agree with people or disagree and still go out for a beer afterwards is really getting to be a lost art. We talk about disagreeing without being disagreeable. That's really hard right now because if I disagree with you on something, and especially if it's a big issue, it means I hate you.
Yeah.
I hate you on that issue. And it's like, whoa, it's just not true.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure we disagree on a lot of issues. And that's okay. That's what makes our country great is we have a lot of issues that we work through together and the best ones kind of bubble to the top.
We talk about core values. We got them on the wall here at Lemonly, and I know you have them in the city. After days like that, where you do have those disagreements, how do you reset or sort of kind of realign your compass to your true north? Is it your faith, your family? How do you make sure that you're still sticking true to who you are?
Well, my mental and physical health is really important to me, and it's taken some bruises. I
Yeah.
mean, physically, I have tremendous back pain that I've been dealing with since I got in office, and I've treated it with almost every strategy possible, and it's pretty much stress. It's stress-induced back pain that I've been dealing
Interesting.
with, and the only time it goes away, John, it's really interesting, is when I'm actually out of town, like physically out of town. When I'm go out to Deadwood or
It's like you can
going because
take the hat off a
it's
little
like
bit.
I'm not in this city. It's
Yeah.
really weird. So if you think stress does not impact your body, absolutely
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And so what I find is I have to just intentionally find ways to shut off the job. I have to get away from my phone. I have to get out of town once in a while, in a secret fashion, so people don't know it. So I can just recharge and re-energize. And then I spend a lot of time, spiritually, just you know praying and reading scripture and trying to take direction from in my case the Lord and the higher power that I serve to help give me the strength each day to do the job.
Yeah.
Still try to stay physically active. Still work out 3 or 4 times a week. I think that's really important for your physical and mental health
Yeah.
too. So those are a few things that I'm doing.
And you made the comment earlier that, this has been tough on everyone's mental health, and maybe we don't even know some of the impacts of that yet. We're still going through this. What would you say to someone listening to prioritize that?
Well, I would say that I'll speak specifically about the school topic and the school conversation.
Yeah, it's timely.
Is there are a lot of things we don't know yet about the mental ramifications that some of these school decisions are having on our kids,
Yeah.
especially kids that are in those vulnerable ages. And kids need to be in school for a variety of reasons, mentally, some for nutritional needs. 1 out of every 5 child abuse reports comes in through a school
Hmm.
where the teacher sees it or something. So when kids aren't in school, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of challenges that aren't being met because of that. And I'm seeing it with not only the mental health of some kids. I was mentioning to you before we started today, I was talking to a guy who they've been in school for a week, and he said, Paul, there's just a darkness and a heaviness in the school, in the hallway. It's weird. He's like, we are going to need mentors more than ever right now because kids are struggling, even though they're back in school. There's just this fear. There's this, and they model the way of what they see. So if
Yeah,
we,
totally.
if we as adults are showing some hysteria and some worry and showing depression, and we have to be strong for our kids because they're going to model what they see in us. And so if we put on our positive pants and say, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this, kids. It's going to be just fine. And they will take that attitude into their school and have an impact on the kids around them.
That's good. So before we do a little rapid fire and close out here, this podcast is a lot of people who want to learn from leaders, who are leaders, who want to become leaders. What would you say to someone who wants to become a leader, whether it be in politics, a CEO? I mean, you've had a couple different leadership roles. What's your message to them?
I would say one of the things you need to become a strong leader is to be adaptable and to be willing to change your positions and your opinions. A lot of times we think we have the answers to everything.
Mhm.
And to be able to say, I don't know. I thought I believed this way. After 3 or 4 meetings and hearing from this group, I've changed my tune. And now I see that side. Leaders have to be adaptable. That's very, very important. The second thing is you can never stop learning.
Yeah.
Right? Growing as a person, reading books that challenge your way of thinking. I just got through a book called The Color Law. Color Law, talking about how the history of our country and the way that our country is governed and the programs that we put in place through HUD and federal programs have created a discriminatory housing climate that exists still today and has led to some of the racial and economic inequality that we see in our communities. For me, that book challenged me in incredible ways that I've never been challenged before to look at that issue from an entirely different angle. So always be willing to adjust your positions and to learn, I think, is one of the most critical qualities of any leader.
That's good. I think I guess we wouldn't be described as digital natives. I guess not that'd be, our kids. But from your time at ClickRain, you're very adept, obviously, at social media and technology. And I think you've shown that a little. If people follow you on your leadership journey, you're willing to be vulnerable and share some of those stories, which I think actually gets people to buy in and follow even more closely.
I think the other thing, you just hit the word that I think is also important for leaders to be vulnerable with people. Politicians don't have it all together. I mean, I go home and there's dog poop on my floor and my kids need help with their homework and I got bills to pay and a lawn that needs to be mowed. I'm just a dad and a regular dude. And the more you can show people that, to say, listen, there's not this like callous facade that you can just throw arrows at, and I'm still a person. And
you've even said there are certain days where maybe you wish you didn't have this job.
There's days when I think we all would have that at some point in our life where you're like, man, work is a grind and I'm not enjoying it. And I certainly have days like that. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
I think starting with the president on down, I think we'd all have that experience. And so there's days you have that, you wake up and you're like, I don't want to go to work today. And you have two choices to make. You either bring that attitude with you to work or you overcome it and say, listen, I'm going to flush that out. I'm not going to go into work with that attitude because that's going to infect the people around me. And I think too many people right now aren't making that right decision. They're taking that negativity with them based on everything happening. And it's important to kind of put that aside and say, all right, I'm going to make the best out of today.
Yeah, that vulnerability and then empathy, I think, are good themes. So a couple rapid fire ones here at the end. You'd mentioned one just now, but what's a book you read recently, one that you recommend to people?
I'm halfway through John Bolton's book, Room Where It Happened, which is really interesting, kind of to get into the inner workings of the White House and things right now. A book that I think for anybody listening who is maybe in the middle of a leadership journey, there's a book called Halftime.
Okay.
And the book is about the halftime of life, moving from success to significance.
I think you mentioned that before you made the move.
Incredibly powerful book, because I think in our early parts of our life as younger people, the focus is career and money and house and car and like success.
Yep.
And you get to a point where I got at ClickRain, it's like, all right, now what's my significance? Okay, success is hollow. How have I moved to significance? And Halftime challenges you to kind of take a look at that.
That's good. So amidst a pandemic and a really stressful job, how do you disconnect? How do you unplug? What do you like to do for fun?
Fitness. I love to bike. I love to run. I love to play golf once in a while if I can. I mean, I love playing with my kids, but that's not always super relaxing. So if I can get away on my own and just get on my bike, and hit the open road, hit some highways or something, I love to do that. And then, like I said, I go to a gym that's kind of high energy. They turn the music up. You work out for a half hour, 45 minutes. No one's talking to you.
Yeah.
That's a good mental.
I've always wanted to ask you, it seemed like in those later ClickRain years when you really got into the physical exercise, was that also partly strategic? Like, I want to see if this company can run without me?
Totally. It was a great distraction.
Because I always saw it that way a little bit.
Great distraction. So my employees started to see, because I got into triathlons and other things. I've done some half Ironmans and a full Ironman. I still like triathlon. And that was a good distraction for me as a way to clear my head, but also a way for me to get out of the office from time to time and say, hey, Paul's doing his thing over there. So we got to run this on our own. And so there was some strategy to that too, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure you look out now and you're probably really proud at how they've handled it and how they continue to grow. And
super proud.
Yeah. So on the topic of pride, parenting advice, you have 3 kids. What's a piece of parenting advice you'd give?
I think we have a problem in our society where we push kids into activities way too early and way too hard. I mean, kids are in so many things so early, and we put so much pressure on our kids.
Yeah.
Let kids be kids. Let them choose what they want to do. I was a sports guy like nuts growing up. My kids, none of them are really into sports. My son is a little bit. And I have never once pushed him to get into anything because I want him to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And so I think 1, lay off your kids. Let kids be kids, because I think we're missing that. 2, and I'm terrible at this, but kids are also becoming less and less social creatures because of what screens are doing to our kids and what technology is doing to our kids and screen time. And I push my kids hard to stay off those. But like us all, we fail. My kids spend plenty of time playing games and on their phones. And so I think it's important for parents to model the way, because when you're looking at your phone and you say, hey, get off your phone, and I'm on it as I'm telling you to do that.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. So that's important. And 3, I think we got to remember they're watching us all the time. They are modeling the way of whatever they see. So the positivity that you bring home after a long day at work, they will model. If you're crabby and you're angry at your wife, they will be short with your wife or their mom because it's all right because dad did it.
Yep.
So they're just sponges, man.
Yeah, you learn that, especially when their little language starts popping up. You start to learn I must say that a lot because now she's saying that.
Right.
All right. We asked this question and we hire at Lemonly. What's your superpower? The one thing you're better at than everyone else?
Oh, my superpower. I'm really good at building consensus and bringing people together. They may disagree, but I think I'm really good at finding common ground.
Sure.
We saw just this week, we launched, we announced a gift from the Helmsley Charitable Trust, $500,000 for this project called The Link. And that has 4 partners. It has Sanford Health, Avera Health, Minnehaha County, and City of Sioux Falls. And you talk about 4 difficult groups to wrangle, not because they're difficult people, but just way different entities, different business models, getting us all together for one cause to help people with addiction and mental health challenges. Really proud of that work that we've done there.
Cool. That's good. That's a tough one, and that's really relevant in your job. And then lastly, the question we always ask, who are the leaders that inspire you? Ones that maybe you studied, ones you know, mentors?
Oh, great point. Great question. A lot of times, you want to list people you've heard or famous authors or whoever. There's a gentleman named John Gordon who's authored some books if you follow him on Twitter, he's just a positive dude. He just brings so much positivity. He wrote a book called The Coffee Bean, and really the premise of that book is when water starts to boil, we're living in a boiling water environment right now, the egg will become hardened, the carrot will become weak and soft, but the coffee bean can permeate the whole water and change the entire water. And so we need more coffee beans because there's a lot of eggs and carrots right now in this environment. So he's one, but there's a local guy here in Sioux Falls. His name is Rich McCurris. And Rich is an incredible leader. And he's someone that I look up to. And he would be embarrassed if he knew I was saying this, but he's got a heart like a lion for this community. He's doing so many things to help the vulnerable in this city that people never even see or know. And in fact, just last night, this guy is busy. He stopped by my house and brought me a candy bouquet just to cheer me up and tell me to keep pressing on. And he's got a million things to do, and he took time to do that. To me, that's leadership. That's the type of people that I really admire.
Yeah, that's been a constant thread in this show is these people behind the scenes that really bump and nudge and push leaders forward because they are actually leaders in their own right.
Right. Bingo.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Paul, thanks for the time today. I know you're a busy guy, and this was so fun to sit down and talk.
We could talk for a long time.
I know we could.
Next show, we'll do it again.
We'll do a part 2 someday.
Yeah, all right.
Take care.
Thanks.
So that was our conversation with Sioux Falls Mayor Paul TenHaken. Thanks to Paul for his time and for really opening up about what it's like to be the mayor of Sioux Falls. Remember, you can go to leadmorepodcast.com to see all of our past episodes with write-ups and links to the show. And of course, you can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. So go and subscribe now.